Hey, and welcome to Highbrow, Lowbrow. I'm your host, Shaun. With me here is Roun Sensei. Each week we get together to discuss a well-regarded, highly acclaimed film against a cheesy blockbuster.
Basically an artsy-fartsy film versus a mindless good time. And every episode, one of us picks the genre. This time it's Shaun's turn. So Shaun, what did you pick?
This week I picked movies that focus on life in the city, what life is like in the city.
He said city exploration. So when I got the thing, it's city exploration, but with an option. What was the option?
So there's a lot going on right now with COVID, but especially with the Black Lives Matters protest. And on this one, I wanted to focus on Black creators. I wanted to not necessarily make a big statement, but rather encourage people to look at who makes films, how they make films, and how that's a reflection of their culture. I think that's a good thing to do any moment in any time, but I think that's especially good to do in this moment, in this time right now, and take a good look at that and see what they have to say in their own regard, and just be mindful of what kind of content you consume, and you know, it gives you a lot of different perspectives, and it opens up the landscape for storytelling in terms of, like, because if you venture out into other cultures and how they tell stories, they tell stories with their own unique nuances that you know, really sort of separate them out and give new life to stories that you might not be familiar with.
And it's very interesting because we are both in California and our picks kind of determine a lot of what's happening, and we picked in our state. So what's first up, Shaun?
First up, we have Barry Jenkins' first film, Medicine for Melancholy. Cheers. Micah, a passionate social activist, meets affluent professional Joanne at a party. After getting drunk together, they have a one-night stand. The morning after begins uncomfortably, but eventually romantic feelings develop between Micah and Joanne. As they converse more deeply, they realize they are separated by an array of political and philosophical differences and must decide if these factors are more important than their budding relationship. So, Ron, what did you think of this highbrow film?
So Barry Jenkins, I've only seen one film. He's the director of Moonlight, for those of you who don't know. Very interesting to see his first film. This is his first film,
This
right?
is his very first film.
Very first film. Cinematography, not really a fan of it, although it's very interesting why he picked the super desaturated way of the film. I thought there was a purpose to it, but not really. I guess it's a direct contrast to when they were talking about San Francisco. So this is a San Francisco city exploration type of film. We're both from the Bay Area. We live in LA now, but we were in the Bay Area primarily before. You were in Hayward. I lived in Fremont, San Leandro, and Oakland. The streets, not the avenue. But so the film, to me, it's just nice. I guess I don't know. Like, it's very nice to see your city.
Yeah.
It's very nice to kind of explore it, and you're like, oh my God, that's the thing, and that's that place, or, you know, it's very San Francisco, but in a more, I couldn't say affluent, but it's definitely not the ghetto part. It's not what I know or I see. The great thing about the director is that a lot of the story is told without dialogue, and I think that's where a competent director really shines, because in the beginning they didn't have toothpaste, so that's not their place, and they looked at each other. Something's wrong. When they come down the stairs, they're very careful. At the doorway, you see a lot of shoes, and so you're like, it's either an Airbnb or they were at a party. So then you're kind of like, okay, well, you figured that out without any exposition, any dialogue. In terms of the narrative, however, you know, it's about a girl cheating.
Yeah.
And then there was a romantic aspect of it, but would it be? I know they're falling in love and stuff because they have a connection and this and that, but she's really cheating on her boyfriend.
Yeah.
And is that love or lust? It's kept open-ended in the end.
It somewhat exists without judgment. Like she states it, like Micah's down with it because he wants to get with her. But I don't think it dwells on it. I think it has it as a undercurrent.
That's why I mentioned it.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah, it doesn't dwell on that, but you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of the atmosphere is very meditative, but it's also with a romantic atmosphere.
Yeah.
This is not a complaint, but this is an observation, right? The film is about this and that, about them having a relationship, but at the same time, that guilt always comes back. And by the way, like, great actors. I love those two actors.
Wyatt Cenac and I forget the other, Nina something or other.
She is so beautiful.
Yeah, she's very gorgeous.
And I'm surprised. Maybe I just don't know her other films, but I think those two should be cast more. They're very good.
Yeah.
The underlying thing with the narrative is that she's cheating on her boyfriend, and I think that's why she left in the end. And as the viewer, you're left there with Micah, just again to meditate on what's gonna happen next.
But I don't know. It's lived in such a great way. I mean, to have one fantastic sort of semi-tumultuous, beautiful day with a person, having sex, dancing out in clubs, checking out carousels, wandering the city together. That's a really great day. I really enjoy, and ultimately this is what
for Micah, it is.
But for her too.
For her too, but
yeah.
then she has to contend with the fact that
sometimes you just got moments. Sometimes you just got moments to live and breathe.
Sometimes you just gotta cheat.
Yeah, you gotta live in the now and experience the person you're with, and reality will come eventually crashing in, and
then you gotta go back.
Then you're gonna go back to your nice, normal, stable life, or maybe you don't. But in this is. But to experience that moment and to let it be what it is, and experience someone I think that's where the real beauty in this film comes, to let that moment, because it takes the course of one day, to let that moment speak and be present and just have two people enjoy each other. I felt was truly romantic because it was just them really experiencing a time of their lives.
Yeah, I guess. I can buy that.
Sure.
Buy that for $1.
Okay.
Anyway, I guess.
So what's up next?
Okay, so I guess it's my pick now. We both went blind on the films that we picked. I've always wanted to see this. My pick is Straight Outta Compton. Released in 2015, Straight Outta Compton is an American biographical drama film directed by F. Gary Gray, depicting the rise and fall of the gangster rap group NWA and its members Eazy-E, Ice Cube, and Dr. Dre. Okay, Shaun, what do you think?
So, I had a lot of good time with this film. I thought it was, I thought it illustrated the lives of NWA, and it really sort of dug into where they were at and depicted a sincere life of what kind of violent world they were a part of, but then also really allowed them to display their humanity and their cares and what they were concerned about, and give them a sincere depiction of I mean, at least it felt to me sincere. I don't know how actually they lived, but it felt to me like a sincere depiction of their lives and where they're at and how they grew to power. And I think it was really, really fair to them, almost too fair. But it was well shot, well executed, very sort of paced really, really well, paced decently for certain parts. And I had a really, really good time with it.
Paced decently?
Yeah.
So Straight Outta Compton is 2 hours 30 minutes?
Yeah.
And then there's a director's cut, almost 3 hours long. Mm-mm. I feel like it's absolutely paced very well. Otherwise, you'll be bored.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're a fan of gangster rap. I listened to a lot of gangster rap. In my high school days, I started with metal, but then eventually I got into gangster rap, kid in the 90s. I never really listened to NWA, but, you know, you got Tupac there. You got
all the names.
Later on Eminem, and
Yeah.
you got UGK, Jay-Z, you got the South, 3 6 Mafia, and these guys. And you always hear that influence there. And it's such a treat. I didn't think I'd enjoy it that much, but I did. This was what was missing with the other film. This is absolutely gritty. The LAPD's got this long history of violence. You can see this in films like LA Confidential. So it's even back then that Hollywood violence.
Yeah. Going back to my complaint about pacing, let me rephrase it. I'm not sure what I would call it, but there's two complaints I sort of had with the film, and I'm still. So let me break them down. The first one is I do feel like they take it a little easy in terms of like the pitfalls of the characters. I sort of agree with you though that it's not necessarily about them as like persons throughout their entire lives, but more about the specific moment in time. So I can sort of get it from that perspective, but I guess that leads into my other thing, which is like at a certain point, like I was with it, but then I sort of felt like it was sort of meandery towards the end. I think it really sort of culminated in the death of Eazy-E as they try to sort of get back together, which makes sense. But I mean, I guess I'm really used to the idea of these, celebrity type film or rise to famedom films and having like some huge crash at the end. And I don't really feel like there was a huge crash.
Well, Eazy-E died. I mean, they lost their group. So
yeah. But I mean, everyone still sort of...
They lost Jerry. I mean, they got rid of him.
Yeah. But they don't really like fall to the bottom. I mean, Eazy-E, like, I guess he really does sort of experience like, getting messed up by Jerry and having his health suffer. Even with those complaints, I still sort of recognize the fact that I do like that they don't delve too much in like the negative aspects and just focus on the but
there's a lot of negative aspects of it. I mean, it's really negative. Like they really come from the negative.
They come from the negative for sure, but as characters, they don't seem too faulty. Like they seem like aggressive people, but they deserve and earn that level of like, fuck the police. This is how we live. This is how we roll. For all their hedonistic ways, from like having these orgy parties and drugs and things, they never really face any distinct backlash on that.
Well, their whole lives is pretty shit before that.
Yeah.
And that's why they act that way.
Yeah. I mean, but that's
so I guess that's what.
But right. in a stereotypical biopic, you'd have a guy from nothing rise to prominence, hit that top, fall down, be on the bottom again, and then sort of rise back up again. In this movie, they're on the bottom, they rise to prominence. Eazy-E sort of falls down, but the rest of them sort of stay up there and just keep on going up. But I don't know, on a certain level, that's fine. Like, I guess that's why I say this sort of, I have a slight issue with the third act, because it's really hard to sort of pinpoint where the conflict really lies. But I think there's enough drama in terms of them, contract disputes and who gets what. But that still doesn't necessarily mirror or match the same sort of intensity on the rise up. So next up, we're going to let you know which one we liked more.
Okay, Shaun, you first.
Okay, so I'm actually gonna go lowbrow this time. I'm gonna go with Straight Outta Compton.
That's the first.
Yeah, no, it's the first. But I really enjoyed Straight Outta Compton. I think both movies had their issues. I think Medicine for Melancholy can sort of be slow sometimes, and maybe a little bit too drifty for me. Straight Outta Compton is just so much more direct and to the point, and just bam, 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 bam. so much more gratifying. I almost feel like I wouldn't necessarily even call it like a lowbrow pick because it's such a thorough and detailed biopic.
Medicine for Melancholy, I mean, if that's your debut film, what a debut film.
That's crazy debut film.
And you can, like I said before, you can really see that style and the culmination, mastery of that obviously will come in Moonlight. But yeah, you got to go. Straight Outta Compton for me as well. The fear in the beginning is to see it kind of like become like a 50 Cent movie. Straight Outta Compton. I'm glad that they did it justice by really making a biopic, and like in the description, American biographical film drama, and it is really that way. It's more than 2 hours running time, and it really went through the lives of these people and their impact in society. And that's why we're here right now. I mean, there's still a lot to fix.
Sure.
But hey, at least the LAPD is not going to bash you in the head anymore.
Not as much.
You wait for Oakland PD.
But yeah, both films are really great films, and I would suggest you watch both of them. Straight Outta Compton definitely first, but Medicine for Melancholy, I think if you're into Richard Linklater films and films that are more meditative and thoughtful, I think you should definitely fit it in, because Barry Jenkins has so much promise with Moonlight, and much more promise to come. So that's what we thought of those two films. Be sure to check in with us next time as we try to find out who was right.
Shaun or Roun? See you guys next time.